It's good to be back. And so, by the way, I did unplug the phone. I hope you've watched the previous video, because if you did not, maybe you should go back there first before we continue with this one, which is number 3 in our series, just leaving it as an introductory to the whole series of The More Excellent Way. It's important that you go back and watch the first 2 videos. It tells you a little bit more about my life and why I think it's important that you and I talk about life. The last video we were talking about, and I think I ended it with exactly the words, stop thinking that your life is so miserable that it's not worth living. There is a more excellent way. We spoke in the previous video that our life on earth is between 80 and 100 if we're lucky and healthy and God blesses us and God allows us to have life and health and make it to the 80s, 90s and the 100s if you're very, very healthy. But for that short period of time, it's called life on earth. This is where we are. Do you know how quickly that passes? I mean, I have 3 grandchildren. I adore them, but that makes me a grandmother. I love being a grandmother. I think we love our grandchildren twice, right? And I think we love them a little bit more than what we love our own children. Please just don't tell my children that. But you know what? It is no wonder we are so frustrated with this cosmic system in which we live. Because we actually don't belong here. You'll remember we said in the previous video that if anybody would go and live on Mars, it's going to be like, no. Because it's strange. It's difficult to understand. It's going to be difficult to adapt. We don't belong on Earth. But we've been placed here for a time. And I said earlier on, 80 Christmases if you are happy. Go make a list of 80, 1 to 80. That's how many Christmases you're going to have if you're lucky enough. And God blesses you with good health, then you're going to live until 80. 80 times only you will be able to make up a Christmas tree. That's life. It's short. We might as well do it the more excellent way, right? So here it is. We are frustrated with the cosmic system and its brokenness because we don't belong here. We long for heaven where there's only one system. Of course, we will be straitened with a far more lesser effective system, which we have to tolerate during our journey here on earth. We talk about the American dream, and everybody wants the American dream, and that represents a whole different perspective. It would be nice to live a dream, and that does not say we should not dream, and that doesn't mean we cannot live our dream. Oh, we can absolutely live our dream, and we'll talk about that in the future. But for now, you need to understand why you are frustrated with this earthly system where we are all living in right now, a confused world. You see, because this worldly cosmic system dictates to us human-made and human-created systems. Every second a genius comes up with something new, something different. In the interim, they tend to forget that the one who created the brain and the brain's capacity to think out and to reason and to scientifically bring forth these theories, millions and millions and millions upon million ideas, thoughts, scientific codes, and much more. It barks in our faces and our ears on a daily basis. Every second of our existence, something new comes up. A new word, a new description, which in fact, it just all say the same thing over and over. When difficult times come, when people hurt us, especially those close to us, I mean, it hits so much more. It hurts us so much more if the hurt comes from our loved ones, right? somebody close to you, your child, your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, maybe even our own parents or grandparents. The closer someone is to you, the more painful it is, right, when they hurt you. So how do we deal with all these variants that happens to us? I want to tell you today, this is what molds us, which it refines us. I'm deliberately not using the word define yet. Molds and refine. We're not going to go to define yet. We'll come to that. The question remains, what happens to us makes us who we are? How we deal with it, how we handle it, makes us who we are. Not what happens to us. You know? I want you to think, and I want, this is so basic. I'm starting off this series very, very basic. We all need to be reminded of that very basic principles here of life. Life is going to hand out brokenness. It's coming somewhere along the line. It's about the skill to take what's coming, to take what's happening to us, whatever that might be. And we will talk about all these different brokennesses in the future. But it remains the question whether we have the skill to deal with it in a responsible, non-destructive way. And I don't really care today whether you're 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 listening to this. It doesn't matter to me. Because skill is something you can develop. It doesn't matter where you are in life. What is more important to me is that we would realize that we have to deal with things that happen in life with a responsibility, an action that is non-destructive. And I can quote a zillion of quotes and scriptures, and we will get to that. But for today, just want us to get on the same page here. During my travels, as well as my own trials and tribulations, which I encountered, that's where I recognized this unique platform for us to connect, and women around the world to connect, because that is part of the design of who I am and who I have become. And that's why I would love to share the outcome with you. What happened to me is what molded me into the understanding, the hearts and the passion of especially women, irrespective of race or culture or country, irrespective of that. It is true, it is very true that it's hard to understand life. We want to understand. We want answers, you know. But we have to come to the conclusive revelation and understanding that actually it's manageable based on the strength of the skills that you and I build on. It reminds me of the word responsibility. And we will talk about that in a lot more depth in time to come. But just as I think about it, this moment, responsibility, most of us would take that word and think that it's something we have to do. Response. We have to respond to something. No, no, no. Respond is not the most important word here. Responsibility is much more about ability than it is about response. Much more. And there's a wealth of things we will talk about in relation to responsibility as we move forward. The skills that we learn means nothing if we do not apply them in our everyday life. It means nothing. My husband of the last 6 years is a pilot. He's a captain of international flights. Oh man, am I one lucky woman. I talk to him a lot about flying. It's really amazing. If I ask him, what's your main purpose as a pilot? What's the main thing that you have to think of when you're in the cockpit behind those sticks? His only purpose is to keep that plane flying, no matter what. Whether he loses a wing, no. If you lose a wing, you're gone. We'll talk about that in another session. But whether he loses an engine, if a fire breaks loose in the cabin, whatever the scenario, a very sick person, doesn't matter what the scenario in the cabin, in that cockpit, the major function of the pilot and the captain is to keep that plane flying no matter what and lead it to a safe landing. There's only circumstance that will lead to a certain death if you fly is the lose of a wing. And that's a session for another day. We're going to talk about that a lot. This is what I want to achieve through this series of videos that we are launching here on The More Excellent Way. Because together with you, I would like us to grow into a status quo of being skilled how to keep our planes flying in the midst of losing engines, in the midst of life happening, in the midst of challenges, whether it's financial, relationships, the world going crazy on us right now. What is important is that you and I will learn the skill to say to each other, life is worth living. Why? Because there is a more excellent way. See you next time.